Okay, all right, so let's continue and start looking at pivot effectors. In a lot of ways, they're very similar to the auxiliary effectors. There are a few key differences, though. We create them the same way, first of all. So I'll just go here, right mouse button, and do create pivot effector. Maya will also create an extra node here, right, in the under the group. If I press on F here and I zoom in, the default for a pivot effector instead of a box is one of those little spheres. Again, you can go here and change the look as if as all the other effectors. You can also change the reach translation, reach rotation, pull, so on and so forth. You can also, just like the auxiliary effector, create as many as you want and press D to move them around. The big difference with the auxiliary effector is that these pivots behave and are keyed differently. So if I select one and I start moving it, you see that first of all there's a red line that goes from the pivot effector all the way to the regular wrist effector. And you also see that the solve, the result of the skeleton, is not unlike the auxiliary effector, an average of all the effectors. It really will follow it to, it will follow the pivot effector. One of the great things about it, it will also give you an extra pivot, so the rotations will really be from that position. So if you want to start creating foot rolls, this is probably the way to do it, right? So I have a couple of pivots that are positioned properly with set driven keys. So the great thing about effectors also, pivot effectors, is once again, right, if I am in full body, the solve will involve all the joints of the hierarchy, and in body part, it will just involve that area. So this is just like all the other effectors. Unlike the auxiliary effector, this one does go back to the stance pose, right? So if I go back to the stance pose, unlike the auxiliary effectors, this will go back to its default pose. Also, unlike the auxiliary effector, when I set a key, see my result here is 132, so we know right away that we're setting keys on the entire body part, right? All the wrist effectors, the shoulder, so on and so forth. I'll just undo that and go to full body and press S. And now I get 369, which means literally that it has set a key on everything, on every effector, on every joint. So this is very different than the auxiliary effector. And because of that, this really can be used as an extra pivot. So anywhere that you want your character to rotate from, and again, one of the best example would be like a foot roll, you would want to set it up with these pivot effectors. Okay, so now that we've looked at all the effectors, we're going to start looking at the retargeting.